To be the best at manufacturing your products, you have to really educate yourself on these products, because the common way is a lot of people just go on Alibaba.com, they type in the product that they're looking for, they find a supplier, they pick the price and they ship it, and that's really where a lot of quality problems happen, because you don't know who you're working with on the other end of the world, if they're middlemen, if they actually know what they're doing.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the NetCon Show. This is the first ever episode, and I'm super excited to announce that we're going to be hosting these podcasts once a week. This is a show focused around business and entrepreneurship, and we're going to be networking and connecting with some of the best minds out there in the industry of business, entrepreneurship, and we're going to be interviewing some of the most inspirational and motivational speakers, business owners, philanthropists, entrepreneurs, and today I have the honor of interviewing one of my good friends, Kian Golzari. Kian, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Simon. Thank you for having me, and it's an honor to be the very first guest on the show as well, of what will be a very legendary show. So thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, always. Kian, for our listeners, could you give a little bit of an introduction about your upbringing, who it is that you are? I know a little bit about you, but I think our viewers would love to know more about what it is that you do and how you came about doing it.
Sure. So my whole background and experience, the last 10 years, I've been living and working in China. I went to China for the first time in 2010, and I started off in a family business where I was just sort of manufacturing products for a family business, camping and outdoor brand. So we were manufacturing tents, backpacks, sleeping bags, and I basically took charge of the whole product development process. So I was basically designing the products, manufacturing the products, choosing the prices, choosing the suppliers, negotiating the prices. And then from that led on to a bunch of other opportunities. In 2012, I manufactured official licensed product for the London 2012 Olympics. Then that moved into working with the United Nations, Ministry of Defence. So I started manufacturing products for the British Army. And then working with a lot of different retailers as well in the UK and in the US. And then a couple of years ago, because I'm a fan of basketball, I just sort of made it my goal to supply the NBA. And then with six months into that, started supplying the NBA with official merchandise, then started supplying some of the players directly and building brands for them. So it really comes down under the common denominator of being very good at being able to manufacture products, making great products at great prices with the right partners. And then it doesn't matter who you want to supply, whether it's retailers, licenses, disaster relief, United Nations, NBA players, like I'm able to supply. And that's why I just recently moved to LA, but I'm from Edinburgh, Scotland.
Yeah, so you've lived in China, you lived all over the world pretty much, and you've been able to travel, and it's, I think, a great opportunity to explore the world, and it's just been awesome for you. But tell me this, and I think a lot of viewers on the channel might have this question: what does it really take to get started in sourcing? Like, what resources or items or things or knowledge do you need to kind of get started in the industry?
That's a great question, and I think that really to be the best at manufacturing your products, you have to really educate yourself on these products, because the common way is a lot of people just go on Alibaba.com, they type in the product that they're looking for, they find a supplier, they pick the price and they ship it, and that's really where a lot of quality problems happen, because you don't know who you're working with on the other end of the world, if they're middlemen, if they actually know what they're doing. But as soon as you go to China, and that's something I highly suggest as well, once you get Alibaba's a great place to start, but once you get your business actually profitable, you have to go to China yourself, and you have to go and visit the manufacturers, and you have to really educate yourself on how to make the best product for your target customers. Because if you're actually making a product that you use yourself, if you're a product practitioner, then you understand like what are the features of that particular product. Let's say, one of the first items I manufactured was an outdoor backpack. I then got a sample of that backpack and I went climbing in Scotland with it. I made sure like the water bottle pouch sides were big enough, I could fit a sleeping bag in there, it had all the necessary clips, it had a waterproof rain cover, that the rain cover was actually waterproof, and because I tested that myself, I know that this product is fit for purpose, and I've actually made this to a very high standard. And then if I want to make any improvements and changes on top of that, then I go talk to my manufacturer, I go see them and I see how they make the product. Because think about it, when you see a backpack in a store, you see it as one unit. But when you see it in a factory, you see it in 30 different pieces. You see the shoulder straps, the foam that goes in the shoulder straps, the webbing, the zippers, the buckles, the pullers, the coating, the fabrics, everything. And you see it in like 30 different processes being made. Now, if you've got like a $20 backpack but it's your goal to make it a $15 backpack, you've got 30 different calculations you can make in your head because you've seen that process. But had you never seen that process before, you wouldn't know what to change, what was the most expensive parts, or what to fix.
So it's basically like a Lego puzzle, right? It's not just one big piece. There's many pieces to it, and your job as someone who sources products, let's say you want to get a cheaper price, is to look at the entire puzzle and figure out where can I optimize, what can I cut costs with, and when it comes to actually testing those products, I'm seeing you have to be the first-hand experience, right? So as you said with backpacks, you were the person who took them outdoors and actually tested them, saw like, hey, does this work? Is this waterproof enough? Do I need to adjust certain things? Yeah. So you were the one testing everything.
Yeah, so I was the one testing it, and I was also the one manufacturing it abroad as well. But there's a common misconception that the more money you pay is the higher quality you're going to get. But when you're actually like a product practitioner, you know how to make the best value in your product, but without paying such a high price. For example, a travel backpack, which I'm developing. As a traveler, I like to watch movies on the plane. So I developed a clip which comes out of a zipper puller, and you just unclip it, it opens up, and it's a mobile phone stand. That clip costs 25 cents, but it adds a hell of a lot of value to a traveler who can now watch movies on the go. So by being aware of how to make products and what your customers want, you can add a lot of value without adding much cost to your product.
Mm-hmm. Now tell me, for anybody that does e-commerce, whether it's Amazon FBA or Shopify drop shipping, how can something like this come into play and either help them make more money, save them money, or how can your skill set be applicable to those people?
That's a great question, and I think it's very, very relevant right now because the shape of e-commerce is really changing. What we're seeing now is that a lot of Chinese sellers are coming into the marketplace. So did you know that 49% of Amazon sellers are actually Chinese?
No,
and Amazon welcomes them onto the platform because Amazon basically wants the best experience for the customer. And if a factory can offer a better price than any other seller, then they're welcome on the platform. Now, what that means for us is that we can't compete with these guys on price anymore. But what we can compete with them on is brand,
because they're selling them directly now instead of us going to there and trying to build brands around them. They're focusing on manufacturing. We are focused on building brands. They're now also getting into branding and building brands and competing with us.
But the one thing the Chinese are not good at yet is building a brand and building that experience and understanding the customer and delivering what the customer needs. They're just very good at copying products and getting the best price. So if you've not moved on from that model, that model worked in 2013, 14, 15, and it made a lot of people very rich. But now the Chinese have identified that, and now they are our competition now in these marketplaces. So we have to over-deliver on the brand experience. And how you over-deliver on the brand experience is by building a community and understanding what your community wants and being able to speak the language of your community. And then, just as I gave the example of the zipper puller, which turns into a mobile phone stand, through your community, you find out what they want and then you deliver it in the product, and then you build your community that way.
Gotcha. So what would we say are some of the biggest mistakes people make and should try to avoid when they start sourcing products?
Sure, that's a great question. And I would say the number one mistake that people make is that they don't get their products tested. So let's say, for example, it's an electronic appliance like an iPhone charger or something. They don't get it tested by a third party to say, hey, this doesn't blow up when you use it like 100 times. And what happens is you get a lot of quality problems later on. But if you can get like a quality certificate by a third party company, and these companies are called like Intertech, SGS, BV, you can just Google like third party quality control. So just make sure whatever you're importing has been tested. If it's toys, it doesn't have chemicals in it which are harmful to kids. And then not only getting your product tested, but you have to do a pre-shipment inspection of your goods when you ship it from China. Because quite often what happens is that the manufacturer tells you you're going to get one thing, but then they manufacture another and ship something else, and you don't find out until it arrives at your destination and you've already paid for the goods. And I've seen a lot of people get tripped up that way. But again, that's why it's also very important to build relationships with your manufacturer, because when you build that relationship and that trust and you do business together for the long term, they aren't going to pull these sort of tricks. But doing a pre-shipment inspection and getting your product inspected as well will sort of negate.
So how much money on average would a person need to get started? Because I'm assuming, there's an inspection, there's certain things that have to be paid for, and as well as your order value, you have to be ordering probably several hundred, if not thousands of units to get the best price. So probably someone needs, a couple of $1,000s to get started with this.
Yeah, minimum. So, and that's a good point, because there's a lot of hidden costs in this game as well, which, people selling you courses and stuff don't tell you about that sort of stuff, because they don't want it to look like it's a high barrier to entry. But really, in China, they have like MOQs, minimum order quantity. So anything you want to buy from China, like really the minimum you should be ordering is about 500 to 1,000 pieces. So if you've got like a $1 item, minimum like $1,000 you're going to put into inventory, but if it's a $10 item, it could be $10,000. But then on top of that, it's your inspections. It's also the logistics, like freighting it from China to the US, getting it unloaded, sending it to a third-party warehouse, then your fulfillment costs, and then also when you have your fulfillment costs, then you've got, if you're selling on Amazon, like your PPC costs. Amazon also take 15% of the sale. PPC is just pay-per-click. Obviously, with Shopify, you have marketing costs associated, Facebook ad costs.
So you probably need to at least double the cost of, let's say, if your manufacturer says, hey, it's going to cost you, let's say, $5 per unit, you need to at least double that to cover, your shipping costs, your inspection costs, everything, to just be safe and make sure that, hey, I'm covered.
Yeah, and the other thing is that, remember, you have to pay for your goods to your manufacturer, and then you have this shipping time, and you have to send the goods to your customer, and there can be a time delay from when you actually pay your manufacturer to when you get paid by your customer. So you also have to have a bit of a buffer time of credit to, like, let's say, okay, your goods are selling very well, you need to place your next order, but you've not necessarily been paid by your customers yet. So you also have to have a bit of buffer finance ready to go and be able to place your next order before you sell out of your current stock.
Amazon or Shopify can hold your money for up to several months for inspection or whatever, especially if you're just new, to make sure that you're delivering the quality items to your customers, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a big kind of thing to watch out for. So if you are starting, you need at least, a couple of months worth of capital to get through, I'm assuming, and not get burned through, because otherwise you're not going to be able to have a turnaround and have your business,
And for anyone who's wanting to get started, I've got a good costings template spreadsheet. So you can literally just plug in the cost of your goods, rough cost for shipping, import duty, logistics, stuff like that, and then be able to figure out before you pay anyone how much this is going to cost you and how long that money is going to last. So if you want, I can make a template for the audience.
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome. We'll drop that down below in the description if you're watching this on YouTube, and it's going to be in the description on all the podcast platforms as well. Thank you, Kian. Now tell me this. What made you want to get started in sourcing? Obviously, there's different fields to this, and there's lots of ways to make money online. But what got you into sourcing? Was there perhaps some sort of issue or problem you faced that you're like, hey, I want to find a solution to this, and then you got into sourcing? What's the story behind this?
Yeah, I mean, I was really lucky. I was came into a family business where when I graduated from university, we already had a medium-sized business, and my dad said to me, hey, do you want to go to China and manufacture our products and take over the whole product development and stuff? I was like, yeah, absolutely. So I just went to China with an open mind 10 years ago. The first time I went, I stayed for 2 weeks, and it was supposed to be a 2-week trip. It ended up being 3 months. So I just extended it. Stayed there. 1 year later, I actually moved to China, opened an office there, hired a team, and I just got good at developing products. So then other retailers and licenses came knocking, and then it just got addictive, and I just loved it, and I just loved creating products.
I mean, it seems like quite a competitive, sphere, especially with China and everybody, trying to compete for lowest costs and everything. How do you stand out from all your competition? Make sure that you have the best products, the best service, and the best quality and shipping time. And how do you come out on top and actually work with companies like the Olympics, the NBA, the Federal Defense, right? How do you work with those people?
Yeah, that's a great point. And for me, living in China, I visited over 500 different factories, and I developed over 2,500 products. And with every factory that I went to, I learned something new from those factories. So it was really just, I immersed myself in that culture, and I educated myself on the best way to make products. Because your typical seller might go to China once or twice, might visit 1 or 2 factories, but living there and being engrossed in that environment and learning from every single factory that I went to, it then becomes a system and a process of how to best read these people, how to get the most out of them, how to figure out who are the good factories, who are the bad factories. So luckily, I never really had any sort of quality issues because I knew so well how to work with these people, and I really understand and respect their culture in it now. I'm a customer that they want to work with as well. So I was able to basically figure out what was everyone's strengths and extract from them who would be the best for each particular project.
Awesome. So I would say your strength also would be networking, because as you mentioned, you visited over 500 factories, which is, probably more than 99.9% of other people are willing to do, right? And by doing so, you were actually able to figure out, hey, what kind of edge do other factories provide over, everybody else? Where's the best price? Where's the best quality, time, shipping? And you built those relationships, and then you were able to leverage those relationships to actually scale your business. Okay.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is that like China is like a love-hate thing. Some people really don't want to go and they don't even want to be involved in that side of the business. Luckily for me, I loved it. And even people who go to China want to just stay in the 5-star hotels and go to the meeting rooms, but they don't necessarily want to go into the rural China to see the factories, because the factories used to be set up in all the port cities in all the nice parts of China. But as China had a growth in the middle class and they started to desire a lot more Western goods, they would open up like Starbucks, Pizza Hut, KFCs. And now the young labor force, which used to go and work into the factories, are like, why should I work in a factory when I can work in a Starbucks? So as a result, the factories went more and more and more inland into the rural areas of China. So when you arrive at the airport, now you have to take a 4-hour high-speed rail into the middle of the country. And for me, that's just my natural environment. That's where I like to operate. But a lot of people who do business with China aren't prepared to go to these places. So I think that's a competitive advantage as well.
Awesome. Now, how do you communicate with all those people? I'm assuming most of them are not very proficient in English or speak English whatsoever. So
yeah, some of the factory bosses speak okay English. Some of them don't speak any English at all. But normally they all have like sales staff within their company which do speak English. I learned a little bit of Chinese while I was living in Shanghai as well. I had a teacher, so I picked up a little bit. But WeChat is actually the best app to communicate with the Chinese. WeChat is basically the Chinese WhatsApp and Facebook and all that merged into one.
Gotcha. So if you guys need an app to translate and communicate with, Chinese sellers, then WeChat, drop that down for you guys in the description as well.
Yeah.
Now you said previously that you haven't really been burnt before, and you avoided many mistakes early on. Now I'm assuming to have that kind of learning edge, you had some sort of a mentor or people you learned from. I'm assuming one of those people was your dad.
Yeah.
Was there somebody else, that you kind of learned from, or a person or someone who has acted like a role model or a figure or someone you looked up to?
Yeah, just my dad. I went to China for the first time with him. He showed me the ropes for like 2 weeks. He went back to Scotland. And then from time to time, he used to come out with me to China. But I learned everything from him. And then he taught me everything he knew. And then I sort of put my own little twist on things. And I went out in areas which I loved, like travel and sport and MBA, and sort of develop products in those places. But there's no way I'd be where I am today if it wasn't for him. But luckily it started from childhood, because like he went to China for the first time like 25 years ago, when China first came out of like the communist rule and they were allowed to build their own factories. So when I was like 5 years old in the house, like Chinese factory bosses would come over to Scotland, visit us, we'd have dinner together, they would bring their kids, and like the two of us as like 5-year-olds, he's now running his dad's factory in China and I'm now developing all his products, and we're still like very good friends with a lot of connections that I made at such a young age. So I was very, very lucky to jump into that position. But yeah, in terms of mentor, just family. So
now tell me, if someone nowadays wants to get into sourcing products, or let's say they have an e-commerce store and they want to optimize certain things, but they are not as privileged as you, and they don't have, let's say, a father figure who has already had years of experience and can kind of act as a leader for them and kind of hold their hand and through the waters and kind of lead them through it, right? Where would someone get the best education about this? Is there perhaps some courses or some people to kind of look up to or follow besides you, maybe, for people who want to get started in this?
That's a good point, and I've been sort of researching that as well, because I do get a lot of questions every time I speak at an event or do a podcast or a webinar. People always ask me, where can I find out more? And I try to look like where I can direct them, but I don't really see much information out there specifically about sourcing. Everyone tends to like sell courses on like Amazon and systems and hiring and Facebook ads, but they've really neglected the whole sourcing from China aspect. So I am working on a course at the moment to sort of provide like an A to Z of sourcing. I also do have a free Facebook group, which is just called Sourcing with Kian, Kian, on Facebook, where the community just asks questions and I just answer them. And I'm also launching a YouTube channel as well, just on sourcing. So I would say that's a good place to go just for sourcing advice. But have a look on YouTube, but then also the stuff you see on YouTube isn't really verified,
Yeah.
So it's much better to be backed up with examples. And actually, the last time I went to China, I had a videographer come around with me, and I went gave tour inside factories, went to the Canton Fair, like import-export exhibitions, had conversations with suppliers, all the types of questions you should be asking when you want to sort of negotiate a product or a price. And I filmed all of that, and that's all going to be content as well.
Gotcha. Now, is there something that people must 100% avoid when they're getting into sourcing? Because there's obviously a lot of people trying to take advantage of you on the internet. It's very easy to just buy into a course or a program or a mentorship and then get basically nothing out of it. For me personally, when I was getting into stock trading, the first course I ever bought was a complete scam. I paid like $3,500 for that course, and then what ended up happening is I joined the group, and in that group, people were giving out signals, but how it actually worked is that every time someone gave out a signal, they actually bought in the stock, earlier before me, and then when I bought into the stock, I was basically buying it from them, and they were making my money. So I ended up losing money, and they were the ones making money, but they had a social proof because they made money that hey, it's legit, right? When in reality, it wasn't. So, is there something that people must avoid 100% and to not get trapped into any scams?
I would say take it upon yourself to build the relationships with Chinese manufacturers yourself, and you learn an incredible lot from the actual suppliers, because dealing with China is all about relationships. Everything is about relationships, and it's rather than just going on Alibaba and trying to negotiate a price, we'll actually become friends with that person, ask for their WeChat ID, send pictures, get on phone calls, and just even be honest with them. Be like, hey, I'm new to this, I can see you as being a long-term partner with me, do you mind walking me through this process? What are your other customers buying? How often do they purchase? What are their quality measurement systems? And they're very, very open, and they share information with you because they're more interested, or they are very interested in developing long-term friendships and business partners as well. So I would say you could learn a lot directly from your suppliers for free, and just build relationships with those guys and ask them whatever you want to ask.
Now, is there anything you would, any tips you would give for someone who just got started into this for negotiations or building relationships and providing value to those factories, and actually, creating that long-lasting relationship so it actually, grows and provides something long-term? Because I'm assuming those factories get hundreds of people, messaging them, visiting them, reaching out to them every single day. How do you stand out to those factories so they see value in you as a potential customer?
Yeah, great question. I think if you really want to take this to get the best possible education and process from this, you really have to go to China yourself, because they very much value face-to-face communication. It's so important in their culture, and you can get so far using WeChat and things like that, and speaking over the phone and through email and Alibaba, but to really get the best results, you have to be face-to-face with them. And the best place to visit in China, I would say, is the Canton Fair. It's in the south of China in Guangzhou. It happens twice a year. It's the biggest import-export exhibition in the world, and it has over 26,000 supplier booths over 3 phases, and they have absolutely everything from toys to games to sports and outdoors to electrical products, anything you could possibly imagine to import, they have there. And you can basically do your research by seeing loads of different suppliers under one roof. So imagine that you can have 5 different meetings with a supplier of the same product in one day, and then that's a lot faster and more efficient than just sending 5 different emails taking a long time to respond. You can do all that work in one day. You can choose your product, choose your supplier, and negotiate your price. So you may think, oh, it's expensive to go to China, but actually you'll save a lot of time and effort by actually just going there and doing the work very quickly.
Got it. Now tell me this, is what would be your, in the 10 plus years that you've been doing this, what is your proudest accomplishment in the space? Is there something that you've achieved that you were hey, I never thought I would be able to do this, or hey, I thought I wasn't gonna be able to do this, but it turned out that something happened, a relationship or something that made it possible?
Yeah, it's a good question. I love basketball, I love the NBA, and I sort of set it as my dream and my vision to supply the NBA. I was able to make that happen really quickly, but when I had that pinch me moment was when I started working directly with some of the players, and one of them was Steph Curry of the Golden State Warriors. And I managed to go to Game 4 of the NBA Finals in Cleveland a year and a half ago when they won the NBA Finals in Cleveland. And I went to a party with the players after the game, and I was in the room with Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, all these guys that I look up to on TV. But now I'm actually working with them, and talking to them, taking pictures with them, smoking cigars with them. and I just felt like I'm a kid from Scotland. How am I here? And it was just like, it was just one of those pinch me moments that through manufacturing and through being good at sourcing products from China and delivering value to these guys, I'm now able to hang out with my idols.
Absolutely. That's just incredible to even think about, being able to hang out with those people and do business with them. It's just something that doesn't really happen very often. Now, one of the last questions I have for you is, do you have, a big regret that perhaps happened with you, during your career in sourcing and manufacturing? And if you could go back in time, let's say 10 years back, is there something you would do differently?
Yeah, it's a good question. Nothing comes to mind. Luckily, I don't have any regrets, and I think I've been very, very thankful and grateful for all the opportunities that I've had. And honestly, the only thing I would say is that I wish I'd worked harder. It's like, because all the best things in my life have come as a result of working hard. Like being in the rooms with those types of people and supplying United Nations and Ministry of Defence and Olympics, it's all come from working hard. And it's like the harder you work, the better outcomes you'll achieve in your life. So China's been very good to me. I've learned a lot there, and it's connected us, being able to speak at your events and meeting like-minded people. It's very, very grateful and thankful for everything that's happened.
Now, one of the last questions for Kian I have is, what would you say are the 3 qualities an entrepreneur must possess to actually succeed in whatever it is that they're doing?
That's great. I mean, for me, I'm very, very big on personal development, self-development, and I sort of go by a phrase of improve the leader, improve the business, because a lot of people just look for the business hacks. They're like, all right, what's working on email, what's working on Shopify? But I kind of prefer to okay, what do I want to achieve? And who do I have to become as a person to achieve those things? Because quite often, people look for the hacks, but they don't necessarily have their principles in place of what they have to become in order to achieve business success. So I would just say, work on yourself, improve yourself. I think I love a lot of Gary Vee's content about being positive and adding value and helping everyone, because you added a lot of value to me. I hope I added value to you at your events, and through that we've just been able to massively help each other through introductions we've made. So I always go into sort of any interaction with anyone about how can I add value to them before anything, and that's resulted in a lot of great things in my life as well.
So you would probably say being self-aware is also very crucial. To success in entrepreneurship. Now, all right, Kian, was very great interviewing you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Is there any piece of advice you want to leave our audience with, and tell them where they can find you online, connect with you, and get to work?
Sure, absolutely. So where to connect with me, you can find me on Instagram at Kian_JG. The free Facebook group, Sourcing with Kian online. If you want any information about China, feel free to jump in there, send me a DM if I can help. Final words of wisdom. Just want to say thank you to you, Simon. Thank you very much for having me as a guest. Episode 1 and 1 minutes continuing. Let's have a great podcast. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening to the first episode of the NetCon Business Show. We had Kian Golzari as our first speaker, and I'm super, super excited for you guys to listen to our next episode with our special guests. We'll see you in the next one.